So giving yourself permission starts with shifting this identity that I am successful. So if you want to actually go, how do you reprogram? You come right back down to, well, what are you currently telling yourself? And it'll give the certain results. And then you reprogram.
I'm Dr. Hubert Hemstra, veterinarian, former business owner, and host of the VetFelt podcast. And you are listening to the Veterinary Business Accelerator, the show that helps vet practice owners like you unlock more time, profit, and freedom. Your guide is Dr. Sam Bowden, veterinarian, author, and the founder of the Accelerate Practice Academy. Sam has helped hundreds of practice owners build businesses that thrive without it consuming their lives. In part 2 of our deep dive into giving yourself permission to succeed, Sam explores the silent saboteurs that live in your head, those stories you tell yourself about why you can't. Sam unpacks each belief with clarity and shows you how to rewrite those beliefs to give you better stories. Okay, let's get to work.
So a story might be, I don't have enough time. A reprogram would be, I have all the time in the world. And you just keep telling yourself. If you think about every time you tell yourself a story or a belief, the first time you tell that story, if you look at the neurological wiring in the brain, it's like a cobweb. It's very, very fine. It's not a strong belief. If you keep telling yourself, you'll start finding evidence that that is true. And then that thing gets stronger until it's like a rope. It's unbreakable. And I've seen people that they will say, I am hopeless, or I am not good for anything. And you start trying to chip away at this, and it's like, nope. I'm good for nothing. Like, so strong. It's not even a belief. It's a conviction. They've found so much evidence to support it. So reverse engineering is you have to just say, is that true all the time? And you start sort of having to find little chicks by questioning that you start doubting your own belief. But the fast hack to actually changing this, giving yourself permission, is to actually dial and start saying, I am, and then whatever it is you want to get. Let me give another little way of thinking about this too. Obviously, we're talking to veterinary practice owners or wannabe practice owners. The shift for someone to become successful in business has to go from I am a vet. The first jump is I am a practice owner. And it's a shift because how you turn up, so your stories, feelings, behavior has to be different as a business owner as opposed to an employed vet. Otherwise, your business probably won't be successful. You have to make a shift there. And we all remember that time when we took on business, we're like, crap, there's just so much stuff. How am I ever going to manage all this? And then you sort of figure that out over a period of time. The shift, if you really want to know, this is a big point. If you really want to know how to become really successful as a practice owner, is you have to shift from I'm a practice owner or even I'm a successful practice owner to I'm an investor. I'm an investor. I just happen to be investing in a veterinary practice because an investor thinks differently to a business owner, and it will allow you to make different decisions. You'll feel different. You'll make different decisions. You'll be able to look further down the track normally than a business owner. So this piece around identity, what we're actually talking about is giving yourself permission to assume that identity of the person that would get those results.
Common stories that are limiting that you come across that stops people, like you've obviously spoken to hundreds of people about this stuff who can't give themselves permission. What are other ones? Let's go, because you're jumping from I'm a vet to practice owner to investor. Let's go way back. I am what? I'm disorganized. I'm no good with money. Those are things that come up for me immediately. What stops people?
Well, it is those stories. And the challenge is people think that they're set in stone. Like I'm no good at leadership, or I'm no good at understanding financials. And that may be the results you're seeing at the moment is you may not be good at, so you start believing your own results. But if I said to everybody, right, I'll give you $2 million here now, if you figure out within 2 weeks how to figure out the KPIs, the finances within your business, or how to get better at leadership, and you get better in leadership within 2 weeks or a month, I'll give you $2 million. I'll guarantee that I'm going to have a lot of $2 million checks being written. And all that happens is people have got a big enough reason why that now they go, I'm prepared to actually call BS on myself and become something that I haven't believed was possible. So this is generally why people have to come up with that why. What is it that you really want? That's the driver to actually shift these identities. If we talk about success, there's 6 common categories of stories that I've kind of categorized. So you hear all these stories, I'm not good at this, none of that. And I've gone, right, there's kind of underlying categories. So the first one is there's a fear of rejection. If I become, and I'm talking about success and probably more so in a financial sense or a really successful practice owner, there's a fear of rejection. There's an underlying belief that if I'm successful, I might actually lose my friends. People mightn't actually like me. And it could be something like this. And here's sort of the stories that'll fit in with that category. Example might be, if I got wealthy from owning a vet practice, I'd have to be ripping people off. So if you look at that, if someone's subconscious belief, then of course they're going to avoid that because that's not how they see them. They call themselves honest. So they think, they've decided to get wealthy. You've got to rip people off. Why should I be wealthy when others aren't? There's another subcategory. So you'll start seeing these underlying stories that'll fit into these categories. So the first one is a fear of rejection. If you become successful, you might actually get rejected by friends, family, other people. The second one is scarcity. And scarcity is there's not enough success to go around. There's only a certain amount of success and they should have some, but I shouldn't. For example, there's not enough vets around. There's not enough clients. There's not enough opportunity. These are the sort of things where will fit into the scarcity. By the way, what's the new belief? There's always the perfect vet at the perfect time for my practice. There's ample clients wanting to come and work in my business. This is the rewiring that you're talking about in that quote that has to happen. And when that happens, almost magically, the next obvious step turns up. I can't tell you the amount of people I've worked with when they rewire this, suddenly, and they actually start believing that they're worthy of getting another vet to work in their practice because it comes up so often. Suddenly they go, I actually had 2 apply. Like out of the blue. Woo, it's magic. I've seen it happen literally hundreds of times that it's just the way it is. But also that's part of the process is starting to become comfortable. That's the way it is. The third main category around, let's call it limiting or beliefs that may block success is I'm not worth it. And this is a really, really big one. I'm not worthy of success. And this is one that we'll spend a lot of time with people on because that'll stop them. If I'm feeling I'm not worthy, therefore, what's the likelihood of your behavior being you'll actually ask the right questions to be successful? You just won't do it. So this is the third category. And that's really big, tends to be big in the veterinary space because the veterinary space, we tend to attract empathetic people who are deeply concerned what everyone thinks about it, often high achievers, and high achieving is often driven from, I don't feel I'm worth it. Therefore, if I'm a high achiever, maybe I'll feel like I'm worth it. So it's all comes back to sort of, every trauma they talk about is a childhood trauma of some perception.
Can I ask about that? Because it's maybe a deep rabbit hole, but some of those core beliefs, I'm guessing that you pick it up on the playground when you're 7, or something from your parenting or something like that. Do you ever find that people have to go beyond just talking to Sam about this and actually say, I have a deep belief that I need to go see a psychologist about or something like that? Is that sometimes the way that we need to go, or does it not have to be that serious?
I proactively send some people before we work with them, go, there's a deep hook here. And I'll only send them, I've only got one person at this stage that I would actually trust them with because like vets, there's vets and there's vets, yeah? And of course, like psychologists, there's psychologists and psychologists. So there's only one person and a lot of people can say, oh, I've had an experience that wasn't really that great. But these deep-seated things that I'm not worth it are generally childhood things. And it could be something as simple as like, don't ask for stuff. It could be simple. Someone goes, I want an ice cream. And it's like, don't you ask for the ice cream again or you get in trouble. So, of course, mum and dad aren't going, hey, I'm going to develop a deep-seated sense of you're not worth it. It's just a knee-jerk reaction because they've got something else on or the kids have been asking all day for whatever. But the child can then perceive, oh, I shouldn't ever ask for something. I'm not worth it. So it's never the event, it's the perception that you put to the event. So, yeah, it is deeper and it depends on the extent of it. If something's like a belief or kind of an opinion, that's sort of one level. Once it's a conviction and it's really strong, then that's when I would recommend, hey, we actually want to have someone like a professional go and sit on that one spot and just keep going and going and going. And this will present in all sorts of things, like people that are suicidal, people that have depression, people, these sort of things. We'll look at that and go, the faster route is getting someone that's really good, can sit in that and go back and have things like timeline therapy, can have, it's not even just counseling. I've been through with psychologists for my own research, went and sat with, said, righto, go to town on me. They're like, what do you want to work on? I went, I don't know. And I remember this lady, she turned around and laughed at me. She goes, I don't get people coming in here just for entertainment. And anyway, she said, pick up something. And it was something I'd had a discussion with my wife about. She said, something that's sort of sitting a bit heavy on you. I thought, oh, nothing, I'm going great. And then I picked up one thing. Well, we went down the rabbit hole. Oh my gosh. Ended up in childhood and beliefs. Like it was literally like, here's the little indicator. And we end up so deep. And you go, wow, I had no idea that was in my subconscious because it all felt so normal to me. And this is the unraveling of the onion, if you like, that I think some of these things, when we see certain behaviors that are extreme, that's creating results you don't like massively overworking, or people who got a huge debt from clients because they just don't feel they're so fearful that someone might reject them if they ask them to pay, and these sort of things. I'll generally say, hey, let's get that sorted out with a psychologist first.
Okay. Fear of rejection, scarcity, I'm not worth it. Fourth limiting belief.
It's too great a sacrifice. To become successful, I'd have to work too hard. I'd have to spend time away from the family. I'd have to invest too much. It's too much time and I'm not prepared to do it. I had this massive deal. Actually, I had most of these. When I went through my limiting beliefs, when I started this, I didn't think I had any of them. And I went through and my coach said, mate, we need to take a look at the way you're actually thinking. And I had all of these. So too great a sacrifice, here was my belief. If I wanted to double the success of my practice, and we were measuring that in terms of time, and for me, in terms of size, and we're talking about money, my belief was I would have to work twice as hard. Twice as hard, well, that would mean I'd have no time for my wife and my children, which would mean I wouldn't grow up with them being, I wouldn't have that short little period with their kids and you're sort of getting to really interact with them and be part of shaping them, and having time for your wife to sit and chat and listen when you're just not so tired you need to fall off a seat, and not being interrupted by phones and all these things. So if my belief was to work double my success, I'd have to double the amount of effort I put in, I was subconsciously stopping myself from doing the things I needed to do. And this will often look like more money equals more tax, so there's no point doing it. There's an example. It's just not worth it. It might be its effort. It could be time. It could be I don't have the money to invest in myself to do it. These sort of things are the subcategories, what you'll be telling yourself, or the stories you're telling yourself. By the way, how did I flip that? I'll give you a little example. How you can actually flip this belief. You've got to question the belief. So here's what I did, because this was a massive turning point for me. I went, is that story really true? So how do you change a belief? You question it with that line. Is this really true? Do I know to be that beyond a shadow of doubt that's absolutely true 100% of the time? And I went, well, do I know people who get twice the results and they don't do any more effort? And I went, yeah, of course. I was like, oh my gosh, I've made up this ridiculous story that I've had for years that's stopping me experiencing more abundance and success in my life. So then you replace it, you question, go, what were the opposite? So I just thought, I'm going to really stick it to this belief. How do I create twice as much success in half the amount of time without knowing how? Because I understand the principles are revealed upon the decision. So I just kind of let it out there. And once you've set the intention and you're open and you're giving yourself permission that maybe it could happen to me, hey, presto, you look at it and it's not twice the amount of results. It's like, 10x the amount of results in half the amount of time. This is an exact case or a case study of how I actually took myself and flipped it round by challenging that belief. So that's the fourth one. That's how I changed it's too great a sacrifice. The fifth category of what will stop you getting is your belief that I don't have the skills. I lack the skills, or I lack the ability, or I lack the ability to learn the skills. And that'll stop you having a go at a really advanced surgery because I don't have the skills. But we all learn skills because we learn how to walk. That was a skill. So you can actually learn any skill you want if you go, that's required to get the end point. So when we just define what we want, and you know, how do you climb Mount Everest? Well, there's the top. I want to get there. Great. How am I going to get there? Well, there's a process. I need to do this and this and this and this. And that's how you learn a skill. You just take the next obvious step, enroll yourself in a course, you know, turn up to the course, do some of the things they recommend, go back to your notes. Anyone can learn any skill. But that's a massive thing, that when people aren't successful, their underlying belief is, I don't have and I couldn't learn the skills to be successful. And it might be backed up with one of these other ones, like, why? Because I'm not worth it, or I'm not smart enough. And if I did learn that, I'll get rejected. So mostly we don't have one of these categories. Mostly people, if you're not successful, have three or more of these categories.
Interesting, the skills thing. It sounds like a silly story, but it's caused a shift for myself in that belief of, I don't have the skills, or I know I could get the skills, but it's an impossibly long process to get there. But my kid started doing trampolining a couple of years ago. And I remember going to the first lesson with him and watching it and thinking, well, this is a waste of time. They're not doing anything. Like, the coach is doing the dumbest little exercises with him. And then I couldn't get to trampolining for ages. And then 6 months later, I went back and I was like, far out, he's doing spins and flips and all sorts of things. And I often look at athletes, so gymnasts, for example, you just go, it's superhuman. Like, who are these incredible people who do these superhuman things, and how the hell do you even get? And it was such a simple realization to go one step at a time. Stupid little lesson on the first day that you think, what a pointless little thing to do, to just train that little bit. And 6 months later, you go, well, I'm doing triple backflips. It's insane.
Well, John Wooden, considered the greatest college basketball coach ever, when he would start, so he's taken these guys who are the hot rods, or, you know, that he sees potential in. Lesson one, he teaches them, and so this is, they've been playing all their way through school, playing basketball, they get to college. Lesson one, they sit down and he teaches them how to put their socks on properly and then how to tie their shoes up properly. Because it's a compound of egos. If you've got a wrinkle in your sock and you're playing, that might, and it starts pushing on your foot, you can feel it, it might just decrease you by that little 1%. So he was about the compound effect of all those little 1%ers, which sounds very much like your trampoline coach. And I think knowing that is, like, actually knowing that's how it works is quite inspiring for people, because they realize, if you actually understand that, it'll encourage you to take the first step and the second step and the third step, knowing you're not going to get results in a week or 2 weeks or a month. That's okay. But you're moving closer, this progression towards that target. But I've seen people that I think, well, they are going to struggle. And they just turn up and they just do what they need to do. And you look at them 2, 3, 4 years later, and they're just different human beings getting incredible results that they never thought they could get. But at least they went, I'm going to give myself a chance. What am I going to do? I'm going to start. And these sort of categories we're talking about will often stop people starting the process or actually changing what they're doing. So the last one is the belief that you have the wrong vehicle to be successful. If someone said, you know, I grew up at a little country town called Muttaburra, which is smack bang in the middle of Queensland on 36,000 acres. It had 195 people in town, I think. Now, if I said, I'm going to go and open a Bunnings in Muttaburra, I've probably got the wrong vehicle to be successful. If I said, I'm going to start a croquet course and have thousands of people in Muttaburra, it's probably the wrong vehicle to be successful. Now, often in the veterinary world, the belief is you can't become wealthy being a vet. It's just the wrong vehicle. You need to be a real estate agent or sell cars or be an Instagram influencer, or I just don't have the vehicle that be successful. And I absolutely had this belief. Absolutely had this belief. I didn't know I had it, but it was a subconscious belief, which will stop you actually thinking bigger picture. Now, there's a process you can do to stretch this called 10x thinking. So instead of going, how would I double my success? It's like, how would I go to 10 times my success? And what it does, it makes you start breaking down. You can't just do it incrementally. You have to smash the model you're using and start again from scratch almost, or smash the model you've got and rebuild it a different way. We actually did this on the weekend with our guys in our alumni group. He's got to do 10x thinking. Far out. If you want to see people suddenly look like they've all had a dose of adrenaline, steroids, the lot in one go and come out looking like they're on fire, it's thinking this way because we gave them permission to look and go, well, how could we actually change the way we looked at our vehicle? So I used to think there's no way you can become wealthy in the veterinary industry. That was it. That will become a limiting belief. It'll stop you becoming wealthy. I am wealthy and I am in the veterinary industry. And have I changed how I did things? Yeah. I could have gone to 5, 10 practices, but that wasn't my jam. Doing what I do now, this is my jam. I get more of a kick out of helping people become successful than in vet practice than making my own vet practice successful. Have I changed vehicle a bit? Yeah. Have I watched people take their vehicles of a vet practice and become wealthy? Yeah, again and again and again. But they're the 6 categories. And if you've been listening, I'm hoping you've sort of been jotting these down. So it was fear of rejection, if I'm successful. Thought of scarcity, there's not enough success to go around. I'm not worth it. Too great a sacrifice. I lack the skills, or it's the wrong vehicle to be successful. It'd just be interesting for you to do a little bit of research on yourself and start asking yourself, when I think about success, what comes up for me? And just start writing them down. And you're going to start seeing, oh, that kind of fits into that category. And it's a little bit of a pointer to where's the area I really need to do a bit of work on, that if I'm not worth it, then that's a category I'd start saying, okay, we're going to need to go after that one first to start giving myself permission. Now, literally, there was a lady that multiple times we've worked with people and they'd say, oh, I don't really believe that I'm worth it. And what we'd actually do, and this happened to me first, I had to stand up. A coach of mine made me do this at an event. I had to stand up in front of like 100 people, stand with my arms wide open and just say, I'm worth it. And then my mentor, Brendan, goes, I didn't hear you. It's like, I'm worth it. And he goes, no, I want you to drop this into every cell in your body. I literally just screamed, I am worth it. And I finished up and I went, that was really weird. And he said, you won't notice it for 6 months. And it was 6 months later, it was like something came up and I was like, no, I'm really worth it. I was like, whoa, there it is. So it's literally by telling yourself a new story. And we would literally make people verbalize it. So if you're wanting to shift one of these beliefs, you've actually got to start verbalizing it. I'm worth it. I am extraordinary. I remember a time when I was trying to become, I said, I'm great at marketing. And at the time I wasn't. But I'd heard this saying in Tim Ferriss's book, how do you become an expert? Well, you'd call yourself one first and then you become it second. So I just used to walk around saying, I'm the best person in marketing and vet practice in Australia. I'm the best person in marketing and vet practice in Australia. Just thousands of times. And what happened over a period of time, I became that I could look at any practice and find holes in it left, right, and center. And now it's my identity. I am very good at that. And this is literally how you can start changing these categories to a new story.
It's interesting when I listen to those, especially when you talk about fear of rejection. I think why these things are so hard, and it's probably worth recognizing and acknowledging that is culturally we are trained to have a lot of those beliefs, right? The Puritan Western beliefs of it's lazy if you're not working hard. There's something inherently wrong with you. Like as soon as you say I'm going to take 2 months off, there's a part of you that goes, that's very lazy. I need to work to be a worthwhile person, or there's rich people are bad. There are these beliefs that you have to be a good person. You need to be honest, hardworking. Don't be too rich. Don't be the tall puppy. All of these things that we are taught that's the way to be a good person. And I struggle with some of that, especially in the vet profession, right? Especially because we are this giving, caring profession, and you shouldn't. That's not how it should be. That's the way to be a good veterinarian, is to give, sacrifice.
What's the line? It's on the tip of your tongue. What's the line? You did it for the love of animals, not for money. Yeah, that's a good vet. It's called enculturation. Up to the age of about 7 or 8, there's this process called enculturation. And what we do is we're trying to figure out how do I need to operate in this world in order for me to get along. So what we do is we adopt the beliefs or mimic the beliefs often of those people that we're mostly seeking approval from. So not who you most loved you, who the one you most wanted to get approval from. And that could have been a teacher. It could have been, often it's a parent. It could be an uncle. But what happens is we kind of grab those and goes, hey, that's for me. And you just sort of grab them without questioning them. And it's kind of like getting old software. Then 20 years down the track, you look at it, you're using the same software, even though it's not actually true. So you then come into the vet space, and there's sort of this period, there is a cultural thing in the vet space. I agree with you, because it's been drummed in. They just don't talk about, hey, let's become a vet and make an absolute mother bucket load of money. You'd be considered as a sort of a redneck, and don't say that unless you get in the right groups. And then it's like, the more money you make, everyone's cheering for you. That's great, because you're being given permission on a cultural level to make a really successful business. And literally, you just have to keep coming back and questioning these and going, you're one about you got to work hard. I absolutely had that. And I was like, what a dumb thing. Like, seriously, I love my surfing and I love my fishing and traveling and doing that stuff. Well, if I'm working, I can't do that. So I had to give myself permission to go, I can work less and make more money. And that's okay. I'm still turning up. I'm still helping people. I've got more influence than ever because it allows me to stay passionate about what I'm doing, makes me think, how do I achieve 3 times as much in half the amount of time and effort, which makes you think leverage. And I remember the day I went, that is such a dumb way of thinking. That's not going to give me a life. I'll just work my ass off like, my dad did. That's his mantra. Hard work is good. He's still working. He's 83, and that's good for him. Bless his cotton socks. I love him, but he's not having the life that I want. So I think you have to choose your own adventure and then question, okay, which road do I need to go down and which story am I telling myself about that road? And that's the clarification piece, is understanding, where do I need to give myself permission to start this journey of your successful story?
Okay. So is that our homework for the week? We said we're going to end every episode with a one thing to do. Is the one thing for this week is to question your beliefs, to find your limiting beliefs?
The step I had here was, and I want the finish up here, is that the goal is intention without resistance. Intention, 2 months holiday a year, X amount of money per year. I want to make $500,000 a year out of my practice profit. Setting the intention without resistance, without the story of you can't have that, you're not smart enough, it's too great a sacrifice. If you remove the resistance, the next obvious step turns up. Now, I will tell you, often the next obvious step, it could be a little one, or it could be a little confronting one. Generally, the universe is going, let me test and see if you're really up for this giggle here. And often it can be little things, but often it can be like, there's generally points when I say you generally have to take leaps of faith. And I often see this, people are going to jump on board and work with us, and they go, I'm going to get a coach or a mentor. A bit of time, bit of money. And I go, you can't get around the leap of faith. The leap of faith, we call it crossing the chasm, is when you've moved from how, or I want to, I've simply decided that's what I want to get, and I'm now committed. I've burnt my boat. Principles are revealed upon the decision. So there's a certain magic happens when you jump that chasm. And so the goal, intention, number 1, we talked about in the last podcast, what do you want? Number 2 is really identifying out of those categories, are there things that are your beliefs that may be stopping you getting it? And number 3 is questioning them. And then just simply decide, like I simply decided, I just went, well, it just sounds more fun to be wealthy than not be wealthy. Simply decide. And here I am down the road, still working in the vet industry, which I love, and I love working vets. The weekend we've had was just fantastic. It's like homecoming for me. It's like all my mates in one room, helping all these guys and girls, having a fun, having a laugh, doing really well, helping each other. So there's no negative stuff kind of attached to it, because that next obvious step will turn up when you get out of your own way. I'll close with 2 stories. We used to do this thing at an event. Well, we still do. We get people to write a check to themselves. Now, I got this idea from what's the actor? He did it. The guy in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, and it was sort of talked about. I wrote a check for $10 million and put it in my wallet and just looked at it. What he'd done was given himself a permission to do it. He didn't know how, but he then just did the next obvious thing and worked. Did his stuff, and he ended up there. So we got this thing. We get people to write a check to themselves at a money mastery event, and they write a check and go, I don't care how much you write, but I'd make it a bit of an eye-watering one that you don't think is possible. So sometimes that's double or triple what people are making. Anyway, these people we've been working with a bit came and saw me on the weekend, and they went, one had just sold their practice for and I won't disclose the amount of money, but they never have to work again. And she said, and I've even got your stupid little check that you pulled out, which was for $200,000. That was the check she'd written. And then it was like a figure that makes, you could put some more zeros on that. But that is the intention without resistance. And there's the proof that this works if you're still going, sounds a bit woo-woo.
Okay, gold. It's a great place to wrap up. So go do your homework and we'll be back next time. Are we talking marketing next time?
I reckon what we should do is one little dig in, and we've been talking about success, and today was holistic, which I think you should look at balance in all areas. Someone that gets overbalanced one way, pendulum will normally come back and knock you back the other way. So what I wouldn't mind doing is maybe we just tap into a little bit around financial success, because we've been talking about that, just because it's quite pressing right now. Two things. Yeah. People are finding financially they're struggling a bit more now in their practices. And the second thing is they're going, well, what do I need to do from a marketing perspective? So I reckon we take that approach.
Magic. Okay. Thanks, Sam.